Looks like just about everyone's joined. Okay, so thank you everyone for showing up. I know it's been an extremely stressful week for us as well. So I just want to preface this by saying that we're hard at work on solutions. We've got a few that we really like, and I really look to discussing those in detail. But I still think it's premature right now to present them on a community call. And so we are mostly focused here on just giving a high level of what events led up to the situation, what we're doing about it, and sort of the change in philosophy, I think, of the community, and maybe attention to certain details that probably we've been as a community a little bit cavalier about until now. So first things first, how we got here. I'm sure that everyone, hopefully most of you were on the call that I had on Twitter Spaces with Jen sometime last week, and I just want to really quickly go over sort of the four problems that is facing the Bancor protocol. First one is unlimited BNT minting. Obviously, right? This was the thing that we had to get in front of to prevent Judgment Day, which is one of the terms that was being thrown around. So there are there are a number of ways that the BNT is minted, but there's only really two ways that it's distributed to users after being minted. So the first one's obviously BNT liquidity mining rewards, and then the other one is BNT minting for impermanent loss insurance. And both of these really haven't had any huge caps associated with them, and no way to prohibit the DAO from enabling excessive minting capacity. And so I think that these are really a part of the same problem. And so liquidity mining, I think, is something is absolutely something that we should remove from our books as quickly as possible, and try and return the system back to full revenue generation rather than inflationary incentives. And then the other one is the IL insurance, right? Is something that we also need to cap, right, and monitor over time. And I think that these are completely non-controversial now. I hope that everyone agrees with me. The other one is that with the IL protection mechanism, the way that it's been operating up until now, it's still been slightly inflationary, right? So I think that up until last week, we'd minted something like 5 million BNT in IL payouts, and we'd only managed to burn something like 3.5 million BNT in from the Vortex burner. Now, veteran community members will know that the Vortex was arrived late. So there is a lag there, and so that there was sort of a leading loss with regards to the IL protection. And there was also a time where it was operating only at 5%, and then was supposed to be slowly moved up to a 20% burn rate over time. And I'm thinking that probably, in order to increase protocol revenues, in order to cover the IL costs of the protocol today, that we'll probably have to move that up quite a bit higher. We also want to introduce other revenue earning features into the protocol, and that in general, it's just good to be reminded that I'm still super confident and excited for version 3. I know that it's been an extremely rough launch phase, but I am convinced that if we had given, if the protocol had just a little bit longer to get its legs under it, that such a situation probably wouldn't have befell us. But with the features that we want to build on top of it to increase revenue, that we can start to return to sound economic fundamentals. The fourth problem is the cooldown induced panic, and this is something that has been occupying my mind for the last 7 days. On version 2.1, at any time, people can, for most of version 2.1's history, anyone could have withdrawn their liquidity at any moment without giving any notice at all. And I think that that's just accepted, right? In every protocol, that's just usually the case. But with version 3, because of the 7-day cooldown, it was treated as sort of a signal, right, for people to withdraw from, and that psychologically, I think, has massively affected the way that the market reacts to things. And so we do want to introduce a way to better manage that. I have often heard people refer to being able to jump in and out of the cooldown as something like a free option, and so I think that needs to be addressed. And there are ways to do that. I think that it's also a potential monetization component that has been lacking and probably should have been discussed in more depth. I know it's something that many users wanted to discuss with me before the launch of version 3, and I'm sure that we would have progressed there eventually, but obviously it makes a lot of sense to expedite those discussions now. Okay, a couple of other things that I've noticed being thrown around, and certainly anyone who's been present in the liquidity providers channel over the last few days has probably heard the terms like deficit and surplus being thrown around, and the way that these things relate to impermanent loss. And I just want to address a couple of these things. Already, I did write up an example in there to sort of demonstrate how these things operate, but I can just go through it quickly now. So just using a very, very simple example, and just give me 2 seconds to get through it. If you imagine that we've got a liquidity pool with 3 ETH in it and 4 USDC on the other side, and then someone buys one of those ETH by swapping to USDC, then compared to the original stake balance, the ETH remaining in the pool at the end of that process is actually 33% down, right? So we would measure that as a 33% deficit, and we would measure the increase in USDC as a 50% surplus. And so these are the metrics, right? This is the way that version 3 is organized and allows us to track the protocol's obligations to users over time, and we measure impermanent loss effectively using those metrics. And so it's not even the case that that we shouldn't expect a deficit. Of course we should. Deficits are going to appear and disappear over time as things are traded and pools are readjust according to the market demand for different tokens. So it's not even the case that a deficit is necessarily a bad thing or an unexpected thing. It was just unfortunate that the protocol deficits were managed to be driven relatively high after a massive amount of BNT dumping occurred through as I mentioned last week, through exposure to some of the very large, now defunct hedge funds that were exposed to Bancor and its protocol over the last year. So I just wanted to quickly draw attention to that and point out that it is not necessarily as straightforward as a lot of people are asking for with regards to standard IL calculations. The Bancor protocol is in version 3 is specifically single-sided, and it's always been described that way. And the staking ledger and the single-sided pool tokens are described in vivid detail, and with the context of how IL is calculated in bit 15. And so the calculators that I see people using to compute what the protocol owes them in BNT and things like that aren't necessarily fit for purpose. Although I am interested in continuing those conversations, but just wanted to point out that it's a bit naive to use those things out of the box, because they're describing a system that is not the one that we've implemented. So with regards to things that we're working on, again, I don't want to get into a massive amount of technical detail because these things are premature. Be reminded that we've only had 7 days to start working on things, and it's going to take a little bit longer than that. But we do have several solutions that I think are compelling, and I'm really looking forward to presenting them because I think after this, it's more important now than ever to expedite the return to a sustainable financial paradigm for the Bancor protocol, and probably for the rest of DeFi as well. And I think on that note, I just want to point out that the process of battle testing a protocol and discovering these kinds of vulnerabilities and other issues, and then addressing them is how things become more anti-fragile. I think that it's kind of, it is the price of innovation, so to speak. And I've always been avidly against this idea of testing in production and that kind of thing, and that's certainly not what was happening here. But that doesn't mean that the protocol was perfect at all. And so, with regards to things like the visibility of the active cooldowns and how the market would react to that, I think that was certainly something in the blind spot. And these learnings are very easy to incorporate into a product spec and integrate into the protocol to protect us from these kinds of things in the future. So I am still 100% confident in V3. I think we have an amazing code base and functionality beneath us, and building more revenue earning features on top of it is now something that we're more motivated to achieve than ever. And I think on that note,
can I jump in here for a second, Mark?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so a couple of things I just wanted to elaborate on were, first and foremost, is that there's been a lot of questions regarding the speed in which we can get these resolutions out. I know that you had mentioned a little bit to it that we believe we've somewhat got some narrowed down good candidates, and that we've gotten a lot of great feedback, very proactive feedback from the community as far as all kinds of different ways that we can go about addressing this to, produce the best outcome that's literally possible. And there's been so many. And what I want everybody to know more than anything is that there are a lot of different avenues that we could take. And what we're trying to do more than anything is just be very cautious, because when you're in a situation like this, as many other protocols have found themselves in, you want to make sure you provide the best solution possible for all involved. And that means you got to go through and vet every single one, go through the pros and cons, assess which ones you're not going to do, or create a hybrid of 2 or 3. And that's kind of where we're at. And we appreciate those that have been patient in the community and understanding that we don't want to rush this at any way, fashion, or form. And then once we get to a point that we feel like we have some good options, that naturally that's when it goes to the community for discussion and vote. And then we also can assess why we didn't go with other options and have that be able to be clearly articulated, so that people have a good understanding that something that may sound good on the surface actually was another underlying problem that opened up a risk vector or a problem or a shortcoming or something like that. Because no one solution is going to be perfect in anybody's eyes. So we want to be as committed and honorable in the process as we can to make sure that we really narrow it down to what we feel are the most solid options, and also be able to articulate why other people's options or other things that were presented as ideas simply just were not going to be feasible based on X, Y, or Z. And then the second thing is that we are putting together a somewhat of a central source of truth document that will help, I think, eliminate some of this miscommunication or spread out communication that we've been kind of seeing in the market, whether it be from community members, whether it be from our own internal discussions on the way we kind of identify terms and things like that, because it seems like we have done a little bit of confusion in the market. So we're putting together a centralized source, and once we get that published, it'll somewhat be kind of our thing we point people to for most questions and answers, in which we pull question and answers from. And so be looking for that, because that really should help us clear up the false narratives that are out there, or just the negative narratives that just aren't factual fully in nature, and have that out to from a source document for everybody to look at. And I think that'll tremendously help as well as we continue to move forward. And I too and very excited still for what Bancor has to offer. This is a speed bump. This is a pullback a little bit. And but I know this team, and I know the solutions we've had. We've got to make it better. It's not like the whole thing's broken, or that nothing was ever as it seemed. I think it's more just a matter of, like everything, when you're moving innovation into space like this, like all these protocols are out there doing, you're always somewhat riding an edge. And there's always going to be learning through that process. And so that's another reason why we want to take our time in finding the solution so that it is long term and that we come back stronger and greater than ever.
Thank you so much, Rick. And I think I'm trying to keep this call relatively short. I'm aware that there's, I think that there's a mirror site or something that's adding a bunch of people to the call, and I've been forewarned that we were likely going to get trolled on this call, and so I think that it's probably better that we pack it up sooner rather than later. We're not going to be taking questions at the end of this, but that the Telegram channel is always open for text-based questions. And if there are some, if some do come through on the main channel, then I'll be happy to have them read out, and I can answer a few before we leave. But I think that the only other update that we can give is that the emergency actions ratification proposal has just finished its last rounds of editing, and so we should expect that to appear on governance fairly soon. And then, of course, the proposals for how to proceed will also be subject to DAO governance. So now more than ever, we do need the community, and we value all of the input and discussions that you guys have. It's been so heartwarming, honestly, especially during the last few days, just to see the amount of new developer activity that we've had in our channels, and reaching out to the team with possible solutions and suggestions and really great ideas. And I just wanted to let everyone know that that's happening, and the protocol is very much alive, very much thriving in the background. It's just that with this one feature turned off, I know that the user experience is massively is massively hurt, and we're doing absolutely everything that we can to rectify it. And so I think I'm happy to call it a 20-minute call. But I don't know, Rick, have you seen any questions appear in the main channel that we think that we can address?
I haven't been monitoring those, so I don't know. But what I will say is that I know that we discussed this morning is trying to set some firmer dates as when the community can expect more official updates from us versus just kind of being blind. I think we tentatively had said that Wednesday, that should be enough time to let us mow through a lot of these other things that we're going through to be able to come back with a more official update on what potential solutions might be, or just where we're at. And that way we give the team time to continue working, still answering questions that we can through the channels and that kind of thing. But as for an official caller update, that Wednesday is probably when we think we can tell the community to expect something from us.
Yeah, okay. I can see that Uni's at least nice and active in the Bancor protocol thing. So I think that we'll address these questions in the channels, and I think we're going to call the end of the meeting here. So thank you so much for everyone for showing up, and I really look forward to speaking with you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everyone.